what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. You might want to grab some popcorn because today we're diving into one of the wildest family sagas in American history, the Kennedys. This family's been through it all, soaring political highs.
Gerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And seriously tragic lows. We're talking about plane crashes, assassinations, and a lot of what even was that? What if I told you there's a reason people started calling it the Kennedy curse? Out of Joe Kennedy's 9 children, 1 was lobotomized, 2 were killed in plane crashes, 2 were assassinated in public, and 1 survived multiple accidents. And that's not even including the further tragedies that hit his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Yeah, we're about to break that down. And let me just say, by the end of this, you may not think it's just bad luck. Trust me, you'll want to stick around this one. So, let's rewind all the way back to year 1849, when it all started with a dude named Patrick Joseph Kennedy. And from there, oh boy, the Kennedy roller coaster took off. Buckle up because we're about to unpack the highs, the lows, and everything in between. It all started almost a century ago when the SS Washington Irving rolled into Boston on April 21, 1849. On board was Patrick Kennedy, a 26-year-old cooper from Wexford, Ireland, who was fleeing the Irish potato famine. He wasn't just trying to survive, he was looking to thrive. He stepped out of that boat with his wife Bridget, ready to make a name for himself in the land of opportunity, America. 10 years later, Patrick had 5 kids, a steady job, and a decent life, until cholera came along to ruin things. I guess that's life, right? Still, Patrick set things in motion for his descendants, and that's where the story begins. Enter Patrick's youngest, Patrick Joseph P.J. Kennedy. This guy wasn't exactly born with a silver spoon in his mouth. In his teens, he worked as a stevedore on Boston's docks, earning his first wages hustling hard. But by the time he hit his 20s, boom, he was in the saloon business, owning several popular bars among the local Irish crowd. And let's talk about PJ's secret weapon, booze. The guy loved politics. He quickly figured out that getting people to like you may have something to do with free drinks. So he decided to grease some palms with complimentary liquor, and guess what? He ended up with 5 consecutive terms in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. I really think things haven't changed that much. PJ married Mary Augusta Hickey, and these two had 4 children. 4 children. So we got the oldest, Joseph Patrick Kennedy, Joe Sir, or how I'm gonna call him to make it simple, Papa Kennedy. So when Papa Kennedy was young, he loved going around telling people how he came from scratch and that he grew up poor, which is straight up a lie. Since I already said PJ owned several bars and was a politician. He studied in Harvard. During his mid to late 20s, he made a large fortune as a stock investor. He then reinvested into film studios, real estate, and shipping lines. Although he never built a significant business from scratch, his timing as both a buyer and a seller was apparently fire. He was really good. Side note, many criminals such as Frank Costello have boasted they worked with Papa Kennedy in mysterious bootlegging operations during the Prohibition. Now, apparently this is false, but I'm just gonna throw it out there since he made lots of money, and I just wonder if it was all clean. He got married to Rose Fitzgerald. She was the eldest daughter of Boston Mayor Honey Fitz. His name was actually John. Papa Kennedy and Rose Kennedy had 9 children. First, the eldest being Joseph Jr., classical. Then John, nicknamed Jack, who I'm gonna call the Kennedy, JFK. Rosemary, Kathleen, Eunice, Patricia, Robert, Jean, and Edward. Now, there's a lot of tragedy that fueled the curse allegations, so let's go in with the timeline. So, Rosemary. She was thought to have a rough start from birth, like she might not have gotten enough oxygen, which messed with her development growing up. She struggled to keep with the other kids her age, so her family sent her to special schools and made sure she got that extra attention. At least on the surface, it seems like they were trying to help her out. But, but, when she hit her 20s, things got serious. Rosemary started having intense mood swings and episodes that the Kennedy just couldn't sweep under the rug anymore. Her dad, Joseph Kennedy, sir, who was always worried about keeping up with appearances, decided to handle the situation in the shadiest way possible. In 1941, he went ahead and signed her up for an experimental lobotomy without telling anyone else in the family. Like, how do you even hide that? And of course, it went horribly wrong, as all lobotomies went because what was that? The procedure left Rosemary with the mental capacity of a toddler, and she lost the ability to walk or talk. From that point on, the Kennedys tucked her away in private care, barely speaking about her. They frame it like some vague health issues to keep their polished family image spotless. Because God forbid their political ambitions take a hit. I really wish Papa Kennedy didn't even get to smell those pearly gates. Talking about him, he was obsessed with the idea of making Joe Jr. the first Kennedy president. Like, he had this whole game plan lined up and basically was grooming him for the role since birth. But here's the plot twist. Joe Jr. didn't even want it. Dude was not about that life. Sure, he played along to make Daddy Dearest happy, but being a puppet for his father's political ambitions wasn't exactly his dream. Instead of politics, Joe Jr. had a whole other vibe, which was being a pilot during World War II. Now, being a pilot is already risky, but let's remember he was a Kennedy. So, after flying 25 combat missions, he volunteered for a high-risk mission which involved using explosive planes as flying bombs. In August 1944, during one of these missions, the explosives detonated before they were supposed to, killing him and his co-pilot instantly. He was just 29. Then we have Kathleen Kick Kennedy. She was the Kennedy wild child. She fell for Billy Cavendish, a future Duke, and her family was like, oh, a title, until they found out he was Anglican. Then it was a big no ma'am, especially from Joe Sir. Kick didn't even care and married him in 1944. A few months later, Billy died in World War II, leaving Kick a widow at age 24. She started dating Peter Fitzwilliam, a divorced Catholic. Scandalous. And then tragically died at 28 in a plane crash in 1948, just 4 years after Joseph Jr.'s death. They pretty much erased her from their story because her life didn't match with their whole perfect family brand. Classic Kennedy. Now, let's move forward to year 1963. So, there's a lot going on this year. Dr. Martin Luther King shared his powerful I Have a Dream speech, while Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space, and the Beatles were also dropping some hits. And there's also another thing that happened in 1963, and that is JFK's assassination. JFK, we all know him. Married to the iconic Jackie Kennedy, lover to the iconic Marilyn Monroe, and also the 35th President of the United States. Yes! And the youngest to hold that title. Big flats. So, it's November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas. JFK is riding in a convertible, waving to the crowd like the lover boy he is when... Bam! Shots ring from Texas Book Depository. The first shot hits him in the neck. The second, fatal. I'm not gonna go deep into why it happened, how it happened, or who really did it, because trust me, there's a lot of shady stuff going on here. And honestly, if I start talking about it, it would need a whole separate video to dive into all the conspiracy theories. So, yeah. JFK got assassinated by Harvey Lee Oswald, who also gets assassinated later. Somebody take guns away. Jesus, please. Everybody was assassinated, everybody in 1963. Between 1948 and 1963, you might think, well, there was peace in the family for once before the big bad thing happened. Nope. 1963 was a nightmare for Jackie Kennedy. First, in August, her son, Patrick Kennedy, was born premature. And tragically, he only survived a few hours. Then, a few months later, in November, her husband, JFK, is assassinated. Imagine that, losing both her baby and her husband in the same year. It was tough. It was a tough time for Jackie, no doubt. Just poor Jackie Kennedy. At this point, you would guess they're used to tragedy. So it's June 1963, and Ted's chilling in a private plane flying to trash weather from DC to Massachusetts. They're almost at the Barnes Municipal Airport when, bam, the plane straight up crashes into an apple orchard in Southampton. Like, the pilot and one of Ted's friends, Edward Moss, didn't make it. R.I.P. Ted, he's all kinds of wrecked. Punctured lung, busted ribs, internal bleeding, and his back is done for. Senator Birch Bayh, the real MVP, pulls him out of the wreckage like some action hero. Ted spends months in the hospital getting patched up. But here's the kicker. He never fully recovers. The crash leaves him with chronic back pain for life. At this point, why do they keep getting into airplanes? Seriously, this family can catch a break. Fast forward to the year 1968, just 5 years after JFK's assassination, bam, Robert Kennedy is taken out while he's on the presidential campaign trail. He was only 42, and his wife, Ethel, was 3 months pregnant. I actually read somewhere that Joseph Kennedy, Papa Kennedy, said he no longer wished to see his 3 sons as president. He only wished to see the last 2 alive. Now, I think Papa Kennedy wasn't exactly a great dad, but that's just heartbreaking. And just to throw in a little break here, Bobby and Ethel Kennedy had 11 kids. 11. That's a whole ass soccer team out there. 1 year later, in 1969, yeah, this keeps going. Ted Kennedy was behind the wheel when his car went off a bridge in Chappaquiddick Island in Edgartown, Mass. The crash killed 20-year-old Mary Jo Capegny, who was trapped inside of the car. Ted, along with his cousin Joe Gargan and friend Paul Markham, claimed they tried to save her. But here's where things get super shady. Ted didn't report the accident or Capegny's death until 10 hours after it happened. And get this, he faced absolutely no consequences for it. Like, how does that even happen? Being a Kennedy, that's how it happens. I swear, can somebody stop Ted Kennedy from getting into any more vehicles at this point? But anyway, Let's keep moving forward. Despite all the tragedies, some of the Kennedy siblings made it through to the other side. You've got Eunice Kennedy Shiver, who was a powerhouse in her own right, founding the Special Olympics in 1968, making a massive difference in the world. She is also the mother-in-law of this sir, whose last name I'm really afraid to pronounce. Then there's Jean Kennedy Smith, who served as a US ambassador to Ireland in the 1990s and played a huge role in peace process in Northern Ireland. And of course, we can't forget Jackie Kennedy herself, who, after everything she went through, carried herself with grace and dignity, eventually marrying Aristotle Onassis and keeping her legacy alive as an icon of American style and resilience. They are what I call the first generation. The second one had his share of tragedy and continues to face some to this day. But I don't want to go for too long or be disrespectful, so here's a brief summary on their kids. David Kennedy, son of Bobby Kennedy, tragically died of a drug overdose in 1984. Then there's Michael Kennedy, who died in a skiing accident in 1997 when he was 39. Another unexpected loss for the family, and David and Michael were siblings, so that's just sad for Ethel. John F. Kennedy Jr., aka John. He was like America's son, the golden boy of the family. He grew up with that Kennedy charm and became a lawyer, then started his own magazine called George. Everybody had high hopes for him, but in 1999, he was flying a plane with his wife, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, and her sister, Lauren Bessette. I am sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. The weather was bad and they crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. Nobody survived. And John was gone just like that. So this is a story of all the reasons why the term the Kennedy curse became so popular. A lot of skeptics say that it's normal. Big families go through this kind of tragedies, but brothers and sisters in Christ. I totally disagree. Not saying curses exist, but some things are just too much of a coincidence. But yeah, that was the story. A lot of highs and a lot of lows. I think most of them would have survived if Joseph Kennedy Sr. wasn't so into putting them in the spotlight and putting them into positions of power and forcing them to maybe be people they didn't want to be in the first place. So, moral of the story, Joseph Sr. was a terrible dad and Rose Fitzgerald was a terrible mom. Thinking about doing a whole video about JFK's assassination because it is really interesting. But yeah, just let me know if you want to watch that. And anyways, thank you for sticking around with this roller coaster of a family and catch you on the next one. If you liked the video, you can like the video and subscribe. Bye!